Hi everyone, I'm Edric,
I'm Joy.
and we're here to help you
Get it right from the start.
So, because we are learning so much, we're becoming wiser learners, maybe not the wisest yet, with our award-winning author, Dr. Wallace Panlilio II, who wrote this book together with a brilliant man whom we'd love to engage at some point also, Dr. Artyom Zinchenko. I hope I said that right. He's a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. So we've taken a different tack. If you've been following us, we're looking at parenting with a very interesting lens, which is a large part of the science behind it, right? The psychology, even the cognitive neuroscience. So we broke it into three parts. We followed the analogy that is in the book. We'll show this again. Wisest learners. Why are you laughing right now?
I'm laughing because I realized
it sounds
now
so
you're
structured and serious.
Thinking about every
I am thinking about
single
everything
word.
I'm saying because
You're
of
saying.
Dr. Panlilio, right? So you have the teacher's edition and then the kids edition, right? Just want to say that in case you didn't catch the first two. Again, it's available on learningplus.ph. So we were talking about what to zero in on in this final podcast of the part three. I'm sure there might be a future one with Dr. Panlilio. But let's jump right into it. What are the thoughts you have? I think part of what we wanted to land on is mindset.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. So I think, Wallace, you wanted to finish that off because we didn't get to explore that as much in the previous podcast.
Watch your words. Every word must be chosen carefully.
So how would you like to explain that to parents? This mindset aspect of the learning.
Yeah, so this is very important because of how this has developed. So in the past, just a quick history, there's this like self-esteem movement where it's like so important for parents to constantly praise their kids for intelligence, innate abilities, so that parents can boost their children's self-esteem. So self-esteem was the end-all, be-all kind of theme. However, in a book called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck, which we also discussed as a chapter in the teacher edition, she shared about this experiment where she had like three groups of students, and these three groups of students, one was a control group where the control group didn't receive any praise. There was another group who received praise because of how intelligent they were. And then the third group was like it's a group that was complimented or praised because of their effort. What they found out was that after giving them a series of tasks and then followed up with another set of tasks, the challenging tasks were embraced by the group that were praised for their efforts, much more so than the others.
Like the group that was praised for their intelligence.
And
Didn't even
the
want to
neutral
try.
group.
Yeah, they didn't persist. So, and Dr. Dweck did an excellent job of doing way more research studies, and she's really one of the giants that that inspired many authors in educational psychology. That what she surmised from all her studies is that when we as parents would want to imbibe a sense of resilience, imbibe a sense of persistence and grit in our children, it will be more impactful if we're going to praise them, compliment them based on their efforts and not based on their innate abilities, talents, or intelligence.
So using nouns still.
Ideally.
Okay.
So that's and one of the themes of the book is really like we have to look at this holistically, right? Because like for example, you might we have had a generation of children who were complimented based on their natural smarts, and they turn out okay, right? Yeah. So there would be those, but because if we look at it holistically, there are other factors that happen. But if you want to be meticulous about okay, what really worked, what didn't, what won't work as much, then this is why we do the research studies.
That's fantastic. I want to just jump on that really quick because he did zero in on the word self-esteem. And have you read the book Thrivers by Michelle Borba? Good book, post-pandemic, also research-based. But I found interesting when you talked about self-esteem and that movement and how mindset is so important now, right? As Dr. Carol pointed out, she said that instead of using the word self-esteem, we use the word self-confidence because confidence is acquired, but from seeing that if I put in the effort, I can get outcomes. And you did talk about that earlier, the whole internal motivation. So speak to that. Is there still a need to be able to see yourself and be able to have a sense of confidence, maybe not esteem, but more confidence because I've been able to do something well? Or are you saying because of this mindset movement, don't even dwell on that in the child?
Oh, it comes together, to make it more impactful. Like in the book, we called it like control belief, right? So with control belief, you have the confidence that when you have an input, there will be a good output. Fantastic. Give a good input, you'll have a good output. Because if you don't have that self-confidence, right? We talked about that a while ago. That if my effort, I put in this effort, it's like, but at the end of the day, nothing's gonna happen. I study hard, but it's like I think I still get a 0. I'll still fail. Then you wouldn't have that self-confidence, right? So very important as a foundation to have that controlled belief, which would be internal, and then have the mindset to support it after. So that comes like sequentially.
So now we're going into the third part of your book, which is the learning strategy management.
The branches.
And honestly, there's like 8 principles here, and if you really want more, you're gonna have to go and read the book yourself. But we were asking Dr. Wallace earlier, which one do you want to highlight for this conversation? And that would be
knowledge management.
Okay.
Because I felt that for parents, this is something that can make an immediate impact, among others. At least for today, if I share it, they can already apply it. And it's also probably the lesser known for many parents. So I just thought that it would be something that we can share with your audience. So now there's one aspect of knowledge management that I highlighted in the book, which is periodic review. Okay, so periodic review is like when you learn something, okay, then you would set aside time to review it, but you do it strategically. For many people, when they want to review something, they want to check if they do I know this or not, right? So they study and they check, they know it. They know the content, like I've mastered it. And then
you ask them 3 months later.
It's like, what did they study, right? But that's normal, right? Yeah. So as a school administrator, I would often hear frustration from teachers where like, I taught this to them last year, and then after summer they come back, it's as if they didn't learn anything, right? But that's unfortunately, without review, that's really how it would happen, right? Because of the way our brain is structured. That's really physiological. In order for people to remember something, we need to review or we need to practice, right? And that's something that for most, that's neglected. It's like, parents get frustrated. We discussed this, we talked about this, and then based on the review a few weeks later, it's as if we didn't study anything. Parents would, homeschooling parents would also say that, non-homeschooling parents would also say that, right? I have received my fair share of that as well. So what would be important is to recognize that there are ways to address that, okay? So like as a student, one of my favorite strategies related to periodic, and at that time I didn't know that it was part of the periodic review, was advanced studies. So which like really studying in advance. And the reason why it's part of periodic review, even though it's actually more of like periodic preview, is that because you're giving time for your brain to assimilate what you've learned. Okay, so like I'm taking my Master in International Business Law. So I'm always requesting for our materials to be given ahead of time. I mean, they have a schedule, but as soon as I have it, I will work on it right away. So before the school year starts, I'm done with my readings. Okay.
Wallace, you know, you said don't compare, but this is making me feel so substandard.
So how will you process this? No, okay, let's go back to one.
It's good. This is
So
good.
because what happens is like by doing that, right, you're now able to have an idea of what the lesson is, what the learnings are, and then pause, right? And there will be a time again where you're like going to review it again, and then pause. And you will find that the frequency of your review with proper spacing will reveal what you know and what you don't know and reinforce and address the gaps.
Yeah. You know, I just have a quick insert here
Yeah.
because I think that people have to understand the man Wallace behind all this content. And when you talk about you get your material ahead of time, you're very diligent, and I think we know that you're a really disciplined person. You don't eat sugar, do you?
For about 6 years, it was 0.
Yeah, so now you eat some sugar?
Now sometimes I give myself because of celebrations.
Okay. But so,
Blame the celebration.
But
do
before
you still-
celebrations,
do you still swim every single day?
I work out almost every single day. But this time I eat. If it's not swimming, I box. I'm doing boxing now.
Yeah, and so I'm sharing this because as you're talking about this, it's, you know, sometimes people can talk about theory and ideas, but you actually live this out because you yourself make certain choices about how you spend your time, and you're a very disciplined person. So all the words here that you used are management of this for the learning principles. But I just want to commend you, like in front of everyone, that we're so blessed because Wallace is a really disciplined person who manages his life very well.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I may add,
Yeah.
the thing though, the biggest shift happened though, it was just about 10 years ago. So meaning it's an encouragement for everyone
Okay.
That you can change.
that you can
We can
change.
change.
Really,
What
it's
happened in that shift?
so let's say for the physical part,
Yeah.
so, you know, like one of the things that I love to do is like physical, mental, spiritual, you know, aspects of life, right? It's like so the physical part, like 2014, I went to Bob Jones and flew back to the Philippines. But before I flew back, my wife saw me like really I was so big because of the American food, right? And it's like, so right there and then, it's like, have to work out. So I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
So the trainer was just like, okay, I will work out because I really didn't like working out. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna work out, but 30-minute hard stop. So we would be working out and we're like, okay, 30 minutes, I'm done. I would like leave the trainer. And then after getting into that process, you know, then later on, I got into swimming because I felt that I want to maximize my exercise. Then one swimmer, my coach challenged me, hey, why don't you do 1K? And I started with like 10 meters. I couldn't swim.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, really started from 0. I couldn't finish a 10-meter lap. So I eventually joined 1K and eventually joined other longer races. And there was one time where they said that, Wallace, there's this race, there's a 5K and 10K. The 10K will have, you have someone beside you, boatman on a kayak. The 5K, no kayak. Okay, I'll do the 10K because there's a boatman,
At
right?
least you gotta back up.
Yeah. So what happened was the day of the race, there was a storm, so we still raced, but there was no boatman. So I had to like
Do the 10K.
I do the
Without a
10K.
boatman.
Without a
even
boatman.
if
Yeah.
that's what you
But
signed
all
up
of the
for.
all of this, right? Preparing for this, all the shifts and all that, from a very non-athletic person to doing what I'm doing now, it's really like it boils down to like the principle there, motivation, right? So my motivation was, I have to be an example to my daughter. I have to be an example to the students of my school. Because if they see me coming from this place of like not being healthy, not being athletic, like, oh, if you can do that, you can shift and change, then I think that will be a good way to set an example when it comes to the physical aspect.
Yeah, I love that because it just started too with small shifts. And sometimes when we're like reading a book like this, and it seems to be like there's a lot of things that we need to improve on and do, but we just start with one thing, then add another things to it, and then eventually, right, you begin to see the results.
Yeah.
So
And on that one thing, what we were zeroing in on before that wonderful
knowledge
anecdote is the advanced studies. And I was listening very intently, and I was asking myself, for the homeschooling moms and parents here, how does that now translate? Because I understand, let's say you have in your master's, you ask for an advance. As the school year starts, you've read everything. In school, even in regular K-12 school, is that something that's even possible? I'm not sure teachers will be willing to give the students advanced materials even before the school starts.
Textbooks.
Get the books, read it ahead of time.
Get the books, read them ahead of time.
Even if you don't know how the teacher will structure it, just read them anyway.
Because so that's where motivation comes into
Got
play,
it.
right? Motivation is like one of the pillars that we talked about in the book. Every person will have a different motivation. Some will be in a sense of purpose. So we're doing this talk because we love to help parents, right? So we love to do certain things because of that sense of purpose.
Right.
Now, there would be for others, like as an entrepreneur, what motivates me is having that autonomy. Oh, I'm free to be creative. I'm free to do this. I'm free to do that. So that's a motivation as well, right?
Yeah.
So when I started the swimming, for example, my motivation was like, in order to push myself to train every day,
Right.
was that I'm gonna cross the English Channel. I haven't crossed it yet.
are you seriously planning to do that?
I was training for that at that time. Yeah.
Goodness.
So that was my goal. That's why I reached 10K, because I had like this big audacious goal, and 10K is just, Otherwise, I would have been happy with a 1K, right?
Or the 10 meters.
Yeah, right. So, but it's like, okay.
Go both then.
So you have to find what will motivate
Got
you
it.
or your children, right? So in this case, let's say the studies, right? So what I found out was like, for me, what will motivate me is like whenever I'd be in class and there will be a discussion, that I can respond and communicate and interact with the teachers well. So that was an important motivation for me.
Got it.
Now you'll have to find something that
Got
will
it.
motivate your children.
Your
But I think one of the beautiful things as well is that these are all interrelated. Because when you become more motivated, what happens to your internal control belief? You'll see better results. Your internal control belief will improve. Your mindset will improve because you're seeing the evidence, right? And then you're also going to see yourself. You're finding yourself more into a flow experience, which I also discuss in the book, which is like you're optimally learning. You're like
Like in a zone. Yeah.
like being in a zone. Yeah.
Okay, Wallace. So some kids learn better through hands-on experiences or visual. There's also research that says those things, right? Do you think then that it's important, as you said, that you're periodically reviewing what you've learned? I actually have two questions. One is it the current situation that we have, the educational system, where people learn things, let's say they learn a chunk today and then tomorrow they'll learn another chunk of it. Is it better to do deep diving into the subject area rather than spacing it out so much over time? Because now you have classes like in school and you have 45-minute blocks. I don't know what it is now because we are homeschoolers, but is it better if you can to do deep dives into subject areas so that kids understand the totality of the subject from different angles versus getting piecemeal here, piecemeal there. It's like the difference between learning about, let's say, one topic of history versus learning it from like a chronological perspective. And so what is your perspective on that?
So there are good principles that can guide you. Okay, ultimately, it's very important for learners to be able to navigate different subjects or different concepts, even if they're like not in one like if let's say you're gonna set aside, let's say an hour and a half of learning, and you don't just focus on like okay an hour and a half for math, for example. Ideally, if you can like split it up, because there's value to interconnecting different interconnecting different subjects. Having said that, you'll have to find that sweet spot where like you're able to dive into it to learn the basics, learn enough so that okay, there's this a good foundation before I move on. So one of the favorite things that I do is like I would learn about a concept and then I'd shift to another subject. But that's for me.
Because that works for me.
Because that works for me.
But what about, okay, let's just be
This is
really
the second
specific.
question, right?
About subject areas. Let's say with something like science, where there's so many terminologies, so many vocabulary words that are hard for children to memorize. Is it so important to memorize these words and these terms, or just to kind of have a general idea of what they are, but to do the actual experiments because it's better to learn science in a hands-on way? So I'm talking now about the specific subjects, yeah.
So let's say when it comes to science, right? One of the most important things, this applies to any subject, right? Let's try to get the heart of the children first. Get their interest, their passion, their excitement, because the moment they have that, then the rest will follow, right? So the goal is not for you to spoon feed them, to push them, right? The goal is for them to, hey, I want to learn about this, right? So as a homeschooling parent, my advice would be like, for you to find ways to excite your children about specific lessons, about specific subjects, and then work backwards from there. Because so hands-on experiments and all will be more enjoyable than just, let's say, like for many, and maybe not all. There's still some would I prefer to read, but for the most part, they prefer to like do some experiments and all that. And that's also the reason why traveling is good. You get exposed to to different cultures, different environment, or getting people. Remember
example earlier,
Yes.
or where you have like different people to share their life experiences, right? So that's conversational is very good as well. One tip that I can share with parents, right? So and nowadays because of AI, so this I kind of like.
That was going to be my final question.
Final question.
So since you're going to talk about, let me just premise it.
Sure,
You're going to talk about that. So one thing we have not said about Wallace is he was one of the first technopreneurs. Am I correct? You actually were sent even as a grant to Singapore early on because you were trying to see how to leverage technology, etc. So what I wanted to ask you, since you're segueing there, is knowledge management, learning strategy management. Let's get this elephant out of the room about ChatGPT and technology and your thoughts on how to best use that in creating Wisest Learners.
So since during the pandemic, one of the things that I self-studied was to learn how to build AI platforms. So I became an architect. So one of our platforms called ChatGPT.education. So we help students who are about to take high stakes exams, let's say they want to become nurses, doctors,
Board exam, bar,
soldiers, SAT. So we prepare them and we use AI for that. So AI can be very powerful and helpful because it can do personalized assessments. So to the level that, okay, I'm struggling with this, AI can adjust the questions and explanations to your level. Even for me, sometimes I there are some terms or some concepts that are just a bit more complex that would probably take me a bit more time to study legal, let's say, case studies. So I would just ask ChatGPT, explain to me as if I was like a 12-year-old. Then I explain to you, okay.
Good,
Then
yeah.
when I read it, it's like, oh, so
Simple.
much easier, right? So one of the things that I'd like to share with parents, and this has helped me also, like, there are platforms there where you can actually upload, let's say, a PDF of whatever, or you can copy and paste, and then it will convert that into, let's say, a podcast. Right? It will convert it into podcast, and once it converts it into podcast, it will then make it more interesting, but you're still learning. So remember, I shared with you, like, when you want to do advanced studies, you don't have to make it too hard in terms of self-discipline. Convert the section that you want to
materials.
convert that into a podcast first. So now you're listening to it, right? That makes it so palatable
For the
right?
kids, or whichever platform is more comfortable for
What
them.
platforms would this be? Like, I'm thinking of converting all their content into
ChatGPT.
No, for podcasts,
No, it's not.
there's one it's called Notebook LM.
Notebook LM.
Yeah, Notebook
That's really
LM. And
interesting.
we're also launching another one. Ours is called Study Guide Education.
But not it out.
Not yet out.
Okay, so stand by for that one.
LM.
Notebook LM.
Yeah,
Okay.
Notebook LM. It's by Google.
Okay.
So you can upload like your materials.
Yes,
you can
materials, text.
copy and paste, and it will convert into podcast. And you can listen to a conversation, and very insightful.
That is amazing.
Fascinating.
So that makes your learning journey so much, I would say, compelling,
Right.
effective, and exciting. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, so, sorry to interject, but we're running out of time and we really want to hear. But just to balance this, what point do you suggest parents do not use ChatGPT in the learning experience? Parents, educators, learners. Go.
Okay, so at the end of the day, you have to identify your goal, right? What is the goal? So I think that's very important. What is the learning outcome that you desire, that you aspire for? And this applies not only to the parents, but also for the learners themselves, right? Because when you use AIs, it can pretty much give you the answers, right? Similarly, in the past, Google, right? You ask, like, what's the capital of? But now it has, like, taken on a different dimension altogether, right? So it can give you like a full essay and
It
all
can
that.
do all the work for you.
Pretty much, right? So that's the reason why self-regulation is so important, because you have to identify your learning outcome goals. Once you have identified that, then work backwards, right? Because for some, it's not really about memorizing cities
Or
or
dates.
dates.
You know, like for
Or
So-
the terminologies, vocabulary.
So that's not okay. You can Google that.
Mm.
You can use ChatGPT for that. So that will be fine, right? But if your goal, let's say your goal is like, oh, you want to teach them how to write,
Right.
right? Now, students just have to learn how to use ChatGPT, because ChatGPT can still be helpful there, definitely. For example, like if there's like an assignment, right? Okay. No, parents are probably not necessarily trained to evaluate the work, like, professional, unless they took up education, right? If they have, or if they have attended trainings, right? But for a regular parents, like, doing would have a different career, right? This is not really the thing that they do to evaluate based on the academic standards of a school, right? So what can happen is a parent can then ask ChatGPT, use this, let's say,
Got it.
criteria to assess.
Good.
Create a rubric.
That's good.
Yeah, even you can either provide the rubric, or
do the
you
assessment,
ask ChatGPT to create a rubric,
Mm.
or if the school has a rubric, I provide the rubric and assess the work, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
So now it gives the child an idea. So now you can give better feedback. We talk about feedback, right?
Yeah.
So that it's not subjective or whimsical, because
Very,
it's
very good.
it gives a more objective,
Mm.
and that's all the explanations. So that would be like one way. Of course, you can abuse it by just like, okay, the child, tell the child, okay, just give your assignment to ChatGPT, which unfortunately, maybe some might ask their children to do just because we're out of time, we're gonna go on a trip, but that's counterproductive,
Right. So again,
because they haven't covered
right.
the first level, which is the parenting
Yeah.
strategies
And I
of
think
your book.
exactly, and I think maybe we can kind of close this loop. There's so much more I want to say, but we're reminded that if we want to have wisest learners in kids, we cannot stop being wise learners as well. We need to model. I think that's critical, is what I'm taking from the many different podcasts we have had here. So we want to end with you, Wallace. You know, you've given us so much here. We've learned so much. Is there anywhere people can follow you, follow these things, learn more? Please feel free to share that as we wind down our final part 3 of this podcast series.
So we have a website, wisestlearners.com. They can sign up, and we will be introducing our courses for parents sometime this year, and we will also be launching our assessment for families, where their kids can take the assessment to determine the gaps when it comes to their wisest learning principles and strategies. So we will be giving a report how parents can address those. So they can join wiselearners.com as a community member.
Fantastic. And they'll be able to find out when those things will be launching and
Yes.
being released as well. Thanks so much, Wallace. God bless you and all the things you're doing. This is why, again, he's been a mentor and just amazing. A man of wisdom. So, I'm Edric.
I'm Joy.
And we're here to help you
Get it right from the start.